I, Kristen, am the unfortunate woman who had her honeymoon ruined by her husband, Oliver. Many people would find this thought almost unimaginable. However, my story will change your mind. My husband and I met when I joined a new job in a big city. I was fresh out of college and was offered a good job at a prestigious company. Oliver was also an employee there. I later learned that he was the son of the owner. His mother, Bonnie, was kind of my boss. However, unlike many mothers-in-law, Bonnie was a very sweet and caring person. It was easy to see where Oliver got his personality from. Oliver and I were in a happy relationship, but there was one problem that just won't go away. The problem in our relationship was his best friend, Betty. This woman also worked in the same office. She was in a separate department, so I never had a professional relationship with her. I got to know about her from Oliver. To be honest, Oliver had all the nice things to say about her. Naturally, I was excited to be friends with her. But when I met her, I was shocked. She was an absolute witch. She said, "Hi, Kristen. So you are Oliver's latest love interest. Look, you are nice and all, but it's important you know your place." "What do you mean, Betty?" "All the girls before you have never tolerated me. Me and Oliver have been close since childhood, and our beautiful relationship made everyone jealous. Of course, he always chose me over them, so I should warn you about offending me to Oliver. I will always come first. Kristen, Betty is my best friend and always has been. I hope you two can get along. I value both of you a lot." Alarm bells were blasting in my head. However, I chose to ignore them. Oliver did tell me to get along with Betty, but he also said the same thing to her. However, I knew that this woman was bad luck, and I tried to keep my eyes open. Me and Betty never became friends. That was mostly because of her doing. I often invited her to hang out with me. However, she never wanted to go out with me. Instead, she preferred crashing my dates with Oliver. She showed up to our dates almost every time we were out. Oliver never sent her away or drew boundaries with her. Oliver and I had multiple fights about this. I said, "Oliver, you need to do something about Betty. I'm tired of her crushing our dates. This is ridiculous." "What can I do, Kristen? I can't just send her away. That'll be too rude. Besides, she is lonely and doesn't have a boyfriend, so she likes spending time with us." "She only likes spending time with you, Oliver. I have asked her to hang out with me, and she has declined every time, but she somehow shows up to our dates. You need to stop telling her about our plans. This is not normal." "Okay, Kristen, I will try to do something, but I can't just push her away if she shows up. You know she is important to me." Since Oliver didn't want to cut Betty off completely, I had to compromise. However, he did promise not to tell her about our plans. Betty's interruptions stopped, but she got sneaky. Every time we were out and Oliver wasn't responding to her texts, she would call him and fake emergencies. Oliver, being the idiot he is, ran to her every time. "I can't begin to tell you how many dates she has ruined like this," I said. She even dared to tell me, "Did you see how I managed to ruin your date yesterday? You should be used to it by now. Oliver will always be mine. You will always come after me. You are manipulating him with your emotional blackmail. I know you fake emergencies to destroy our dates. You have no shame." "Betty, I fake emergencies, and still, Oliver comes to me. Watch my words, Kristen. One day I will steal him from you. I know how to keep what is mine." I was shocked by Betty's audacity. I wanted to tell Oliver, but I had no proof. Betty smartly cornered me in the office so that I didn't have any proof of our conversation. Besides, I knew Oliver would make excuses for her. He always said, "She is just lonely, Kristen. Have some empathy for her. You know she has mental health problems and needs me around." She needs to get her own man, Oliver. You cannot be a proxy for the rest of your life. It is affecting our relationship." "That is a mean thing to say, Kristen. I have been working on putting boundaries. I need time. This is all very new to me. If it was someone else, I would have left. This relationship, I'm here because I love you and genuinely want a life with you." It's not like Oliver didn't put in any effort. He was a great boyfriend to me. He even started to put down boundaries and stop telling Betty about our dates. However, Betty always found a way to manipulate him. Back then, I thought that I had a chance. Oliver did love me a lot, and I loved him just as much. Even Bonnie became close to me and already saw me as a daughter-in-law. She was critical of Betty and didn't like her manipulative ways. When Oliver finally proposed to me, I said yes. I did want to have a life with him. He was already trying to distance himself from Betty, so I had hoped. However, Betty wasn't going to let him off that easily. As soon as she heard about our engagement, she ramped up her manipulation. I came across some of her texts with Oliver. She said, "Can't just abandon me like this, Oliver. How can you get married when I am alone?" "I'm not abandoning you, Betty. You will always be important to me. I love Kristen, so she's important to me as well." "She's taking you away from me. You have already reduced contact with me. I can't believe you're marrying her. You betrayed me." "Don't say that, Betty. I would never betray you. I'm always here for you, but I can't leave Kristen hanging for long. I want to have a family with her." "Yes, and I won't be part of that family. I can't believe you would do this to me. I'm already having panic attacks throughout the day. My mental health is in shambles, Betty. Please take care of yourself. I'll never forgive myself if something happens to you. Believe me, Betty, I would never abandon you. I will always be here." The rest of the conversation included Betty playing on her mental health while Oliver tried to comfort her. I could see that Oliver was getting sucked into Betty's drama again. However, he always told her that he wanted to marry me and wouldn't budge on it. So again, I held on to the hope of having a good marriage. Bonnie did warn me about Betty. As I have said before, she disliked Betty a lot. I wanted to know why Bonnie was so against Oliver. Things became clearer when she told me, "You need to watch out for Betty, Kristen. Now that you are engaged, she will try everything to destroy your marriage. She is dead set on having Oliver to herself." "I know, Bonnie. I'm trying my best. It's all on Oliver now. If he can't set boundaries, it will be useless." "It's not like Oliver didn't try, Kristen. This girl is smart. She manipulates him and has destroyed multiple relationships. She even refuses to date anyone or get help for her obsession. Oliver doesn't feel romantically for Betty, but he refuses to leave her behind." I took Bonnie's words very seriously. Bonnie confirmed that Betty did destroy his past relationships. However, I was determined not to get swayed so easily. I kept my senses alert and proceeded with the wedding. Oliver did try to include Betty in the wedding preparations. However, I shut that down quickly. After that, he handled Betty on his own. Bonnie also made it clear to him that she wouldn't tolerate him disrespecting me for Betty. With everything set, me and Oliver were ready to get married. Oliver begged me to have Betty as a bridesmaid, but I refused. I was afraid Betty would ruin the wedding. It's not like she didn't try. On our wedding day, Betty showed up in a white cocktail dress. My stupid husband went and complimented her. Everyone stared at her in disgust. My best friend was planning to spill wine on her dress. However, I stopped her because she could do it. I didn't want us to stoop to her level. Watching Oliver get married to me was enough consolation for me. After me and Oliver got married, we left for our honeymoon. I thought that we had left Betty's toxic self far behind. We had a great time at the beach city we visited and were genuinely enjoying ourselves. However, soon my joy would be snuffed out. Just a few days into the honeymoon, Oliver got a call from someone. He went away to a secluded area to talk. When he came back to me, he looked upset. He then said, "Kristen, I need to go home immediately. There has been an emergency. You need to leave now." "What's wrong, Oliver?" "It's a work emergency, Kristen. They need me back at the company immediately. I just got a call from the company." "But you are on leave. They know that." "Why are they calling you when there are so many people around?" "Because I am more experienced, Kristen. They don't want anyone else. Look, let me go back now. The hotel is still booked for 3 more days. You can just stay and enjoy yourself. That way we won't be losing any money." "But I want to go back with you. Do you want to leave me behind?" "Don't be ridiculous, Kristen. What would you do at home when I will be at work? We will lose a lot of money if you leave now. You stay here and enjoy the honeymoon." "Yes, my husband wanted me to have a honeymoon by myself. The work emergency couldn't be avoided, and he had to leave the next morning. I begged and pleaded with him to take me with him, but he never agreed. That's when I knew something was seriously wrong. I've been with him for years and easily knew that he was hiding something. So when he went to sleep, I snooped on his phone. Lo and behold, he never got a call from work. It was Betty who called and told him to come home. How am I so sure about this? Well, I found some pretty damning text messages between them. For anyone wondering, no, there were no work texts between them. This is how the conversation went. "Oliver, please come back. I'm begging you. I can't be alone like this. You know I am lonely. And still you went off on your honeymoon for such a long time. I knew Kristen would steal you from me. I will be back soon. Don't worry. It won't be a long time. It wasn't possible to cancel my honeymoon, Betty. You know I would never leave you alone like that. Please come back, Oliver. I'm starting to get sick. I'm anxious, having panic attacks. If you don't come soon, I might end up hurting myself. I will know that you don't care about me at all." "No, no. Please don't do that. Fine. I'll come back tomorrow if this is what you want. I will make it happen. Just don't hurt yourself." So this woman purposely tried to sabotage my honeymoon. And what does my husband do? He freaking cancels everything and decides to fly back to her. Guys, at that moment, I was done with Oliver. I realized that I will always be the third person in his life. He could never look past Betty and her needs. Even if he said he didn't love her, it was clear to me that he would always put her first. I was devastated. I loved Oliver, but he went too far. I was done being walked all over, so I made a decision. I was going to get an annulment, but I also decided not to make a scene about it. I quickly took some screenshots and sent them to me. Then I deleted any signs that I had sent myself the evidence. I knew I needed the evidence to get revenge. Also, I didn't want to leave Oliver any chance to twist the real story. I prepared everything and went to sleep. The next day, Oliver flew back home as promised. I intentionally stayed behind since I was already ready to get an annulment. I didn't bother begging to go back with him. Instead, I called my best friend and told her to come and spend the rest of the vacation with me. She immediately agreed, and I booked her flight the same day. What Oliver didn't stop to think about was the fact that his mother noticed everything. She casually called me at night and said, "Justin, why is Oliver back in the city? I saw him at the house when I was driving by. What is going on? Did you guys return early?" "No, Bonnie. It's just Oliver who went back. I'm still on our honeymoon." "I won't be coming back, Bonnie. I'll go straight to my mum's house when my vacation is up." "What? This is very confusing. What happened, Kristen? Tell me everything. Why did Oliver leave you there and come back before your honeymoon ended? He told me he had a work emergency. When I asked Oliver to take me home, he refused and said that I should enjoy myself. Nonsense! There is no emergency at the company. I would have known if there were any. Even then, no one would have called him back. Hell, he hasn't even been in the office today. That's because he lied to me, Bonnie. He went back for Betty. She begged him to come back and emotionally blackmailed him. Are you serious? He did do that again? Did he leave you for her on your honeymoon? Oh my God, Kristen, I'm so sorry. I have all the evidence, Bonnie. I'll send them to you once we are done talking. I'll be getting an annulment. I can't stay with him anymore. I understand, Kristen. Everyone asked you to stay with my worthless son, but don't worry. He won't go unpunished. I will take care of it. We talked a little more and then hung up. I knew Bonnie wouldn't let him go so easily. My plan was already in motion. I didn't care what happened to Oliver. In my mind, he completely deserves it. A few days passed, and I had a blast with my best friend. The day before I was supposed to return, Oliver texted me and said he can't wait to have me home. All these days that he was gone, I didn't get a single text or call from him. Probably because he was busy comforting Betty. I didn't even care anymore. I wanted to laugh at his stupidity. He thought everything would be well. The next day I flew back to the city and went straight to my mum's house. Oliver kept texting me and trying to get in contact with me. I ignored him throughout the day. When his calls grew frantic at night, I finally picked up the call. Oliver, where are you, Kristen? I'm worried about you. You haven't been picking up my calls. Are you okay? When will you come home? I won't come home, Oliver. I know why you left me on our honeymoon. There is no way I can overlook your insensitive acts anymore. What are you saying, Kristen? I was back because of work. There must be some misunderstanding. I have proof of your text with Betty. I know everything, and so does Bonnie. She is the one who confirmed that there was no emergency at work. Kristen, listen to me. You have to understand. I didn't have a choice. You saw the text. She was feeling very down. How could I leave her like that? She is my best friend. And I am your wife, Oliver. Oh, I was your wife. I should have come first. It wasn't even an emergency with her. You broke my boundaries within a week of getting married. I have no hopes for you anymore. I will be leaving, Kristen. Please hear me out. I love you and only you. I can't leave Betty because she needs me. There is nothing inappropriate between us. Please don't leave me. I don't want to lose you. Please, Kristen. You can try and tell that to other people, Oliver. Ask around and see who agrees with you. You know how inappropriate you have been. It's just that you want the best of both worlds. That won't happen anymore. I'll send the papers for the annulment. We are done. I hung up on him while he tried to beg to come back. No amount of pleading or begging would keep me with him this time. He realizes how much he messed up, and I knew he would be paying for his foolish deeds. And so will Betty. I had already sent the screenshots to Bonnie. She told me that she had plans of her own, so she called me and said that she is planning to fire both Oliver and Betty from the job. She didn't want the dude to work in her company or profit from her in any way. Oliver did call me a couple of times. He also texted me saying that his mother had fired him and won't speak to him anymore. Now he is the one who is all alone. Betty also sent me a few texts to call me names. She told me that Oliver had cut contact with her and Bonnie fired her from her job. She berated me for ruining her life and taking away the love of her life. I simply replied that she deserved what she got. I was firm in my decision to leave Oliver. I prepared all the papers with my lawyers for the annulment. When I and Oliver met with our lawyers, he tried to beg me to stay again. He said that he had cut off Betty and understood how inappropriate he was being to me. I told him that it was too late. I signed the papers in front of him, and he did the same. He signed only because his lawyer said I would go to court if he doesn't agree to an annulment. I guess he no longer had the money for a court battle. Since everything happened, I have managed to move on. It's been 8 months since the annulment happened. Bonnie and I are still very close. We even hang out together from time to time. She told me that Oliver was still very heartbroken and refused to talk to Betty. Bonnie also said that she never gave him the job back and he was forced to join another company. Now he lived alone and lamented losing everyone around him. Oliver still calls me and texts me every day. However, I have never replied. As far as I'm concerned, our life together is over. I have managed to move on while he is all set to be sad and completely alone for the rest of his life.
My name is Emily, and I'm 35 years old. I've been a homemaker for 10 years, married to my husband, a doctor named Michael. We haven't been blessed with children, but we've been living a reasonably happy life. However, something happened that put an end to our 10 years of marriage. It happened one day. "Emily, this is the end for us," said Michael, who came home late as usual. "What do you mean by the end? What are you suddenly talking about?" "I've decided to marry my mistress, so we're getting divorced today." "Marry your mistress? What are you talking about? I've made up my mind. I'm leaving you and marrying her. Besides, we didn't marry for love, so you probably don't care, right?" Indeed, ours wasn't a love marriage. Michael's parents were eager for him to marry and found me as a suitable partner. We hardly knew each other and got married quickly. The only thing we had in common was that we originally had the same last name. People might say it's fate that we have the same last name, I thought, attracted by the idea in the rush of surrounding marriages, and decided to marry him. Since then, we managed our wedding and married life well enough, but I never imagined we would divorce after 10 years. It wasn't a love marriage, but we've lived together for 10 years, and now you suddenly want to marry your mistress. When did you start betraying me? It's not betrayal. I met her about a year ago. She's a nurse who joined our hospital. She's charming, unlike you, always caring for me. And it's natural that I was drawn to her. Natural? Are you serious? Yes, I've always been serious. These 10 years living with you have been true hell. I was honestly sick and tired of supporting such a boring woman, but that ends today. How can you talk like that? It's the truth. You're a homemaker who produces nothing while she's an active nurse. Ask any man in the country, they'd all choose her over you. Do you think a high-flying doctor like me needs someone like you? After a pause, I was the first to speak. Fine, let's divorce. I never thought I'd be married to someone who could say such things so calmly. We can discuss alimony and property division later with a lawyer. I'll sign the divorce papers and send them later. Until then, I'll go back to my parents' house. But then Michael interrupted. No need for discussions. We don't even need a divorce paper. What do you mean? We can't separate without it. If we don't divorce, you can't remarry. You're so naive, it's pathetic. The truth is, I never submitted our marriage registration. We're not a married couple, just cohabitants. So there's no divorce, no alimony, no property division. That day, Michael was supposed to submit our marriage registration, but I couldn't go because of an urgent matter. But it turns out he never submitted it. Not submitted? Wait, are you joking? We've been living as a married couple for 10 years. It's impossible that you didn't submit it. Normally, yes. That's why I made that rule at the beginning. If you went to the office, everything would be ruined. When we got married, we made some rules. I, as a homemaker, would handle all the household chores. I was on an allowance, and part-time work was prohibited. And Michael would handle all governmental and official matters. Why would you do such a thing? Because I was about to be forced into a marriage with someone I didn't love. It's not like I was going to submit it easily. I was saving marriage for someone I was destined to be with. Then you should have refused the marriage proposal in the first place. I couldn't refuse. My parents are stubborn and wouldn't listen. What would have happened if I said I didn't want to marry? Plus, I wanted a housekeeper. I'm a busy doctor and can't often tend to household chores, so I decided to marry you as a housekeeper. It was a good deal for you too, right? You could eat well and have a roof over your head without working. You seemed desperate to get married too. What, you were probably feeling pressured because your friends were getting married, right? Even though we weren't actually married, you were seen as the woman who married a doctor. This 10-year relationship was a win-win for both of us. That's all it was, and it ends today. You should be grateful for the good times you had. Now you have to live on your own without relying on others. I can't believe this. Oh, and one more thing, don't tell my parents about this. If you do something unnecessary, you know what will happen to your father, right? My father, who runs a medical equipment sales company, has a contract with the hospital where he works. It was through my marriage to him that this connection was made. If I told my in-laws, he's implying that he'd sever the contract as a threat. In other words, he's threatening me not to do anything unnecessary. It's your fault for being deceived. How pitiful to be thrown out with nothing, he said, laughing. But the one who would be thrown out without knowing anything was actually him. I couldn't help but burst into laughter. What's so funny all of a sudden? I can't believe you became a doctor with that kind of knowledge. What do you mean? I knew all along about your mistress and that you didn't submit our marriage registration. That's impossible. That's why I've been preparing, waiting for the day you'd bring it up yourself, preparing to get my revenge on you. In fact, I had suspected his infidelity for the past 6 months, but I didn't have enough evidence to confront him, so I hired a private investigator to look into his affair. Ma'am, there are 2 things I need to tell you. The first is that your husband is indeed having an affair. We've got evidence of him entering a hotel with a nurse from his workplace. And the second is from their conversations. There's a possibility that you two are not legally married. Possibility of not being legally married. What does that mean? I overheard your husband and his mistress at a cafe. He said they didn't need to worry about alimony or property division since they never submitted a marriage registration. What? I can't believe it. We've been living as a married couple for 10 years. I don't know why he didn't submit the marriage registration. That's why he never let me handle any official procedures. Yeah, that seems to be the case. I can't believe this. How could this happen? It's rare to hear about not submitting a marriage registration for 10 years, but it's not unheard of. This is too much. Am I just supposed to accept this? If we were never married from the start, there's nothing I can do. Not necessarily. What do you mean? Let's make him pay for deceiving you for 10 years. First, we need to prepare without him noticing. And so I began to prepare with the investigator to punish my husband. So what if you knew we were never married from the start? So it doesn't matter what I do with other women. I don't need to take any responsibility, he said. I was pitiful for not knowing anything, but it seems you are the one who was pitiful. What do you mean? We're considered to be in a common law relationship on paper. So what, you might not know, but you can actually claim alimony and divide property in a common law relationship. What? He didn't know that registering as a de facto marriage would backfire on him. You can make claims in a common law relationship. It's not well known, but yes, you can. Of course there are some conditions, but looking at your case, it seems you meet them. What are these conditions? The common law relationship is established based on these two criteria. First, both parties must have the intention to marry. If it's just living together, that's cohabitation. Mutual intent to marry is key. That seems subjective and hard to judge. For instance, if you had a wedding ceremony or recognized as a couple by others, it can be acknowledged. We've had a wedding ceremony, and our parents and friends know us as a couple. Then the first criterion is met. The second is living as if married. This includes sharing household life for over 3 years. You've been living together as a couple for over 10 years. As a homemaker, you've obviously shared the household finances. This is recognized as a marital relationship. So that means if you can provide proof of what we discussed, you can claim alimony and divide property. I'm not an expert in this area, so I'll introduce you to a lawyer. You can work with them to bring him down. After consulting the lawyer I was referred to, I was told that I could indeed claim alimony and property division from my husband. So I'm going to demand alimony and property division from you. I informed my husband, who turned pale. His confidence, which had looked down on me just a moment ago, was gone. But even if you can claim alimony and property division, you're just an unemployed woman. Do you plan to rely on your parents after being kicked out? Didn't I say I was preparing? I've already found a job starting next month. I've also got my eye on a new place. Don't worry about me. What? He thought I, a clueless homemaker, would be helpless, but the tables had turned. Ail us, so I'll make sure to discuss this with your parents. Just so you know, do you not care what happens to your father? If they want to break the contract, let them. What, sure, you were the link to the hospital, but the contract continued because of my father and his company's efforts. Whether or not they keep the contract is up to them. Let's see if they'll break a contract just because the doctor's wife of 10 years was a lie. Try saying that, you. My father and I won't be affected if the contract is broken over this. It only shows the depth of their trust. We'll just find another hospital to partner with. Saying this, I took out my phone. You're not calling your parents, are you? That's exactly what I'm doing. Our parents think we're still married. It's only natural to inform them if this relationship is ending. Then, to my surprise, my husband began to apologize to me. Please let me talk to them. Don't call. Why? You know how strict my parents are. If they find out about this, I'm done. What does that have to do with me, huh? You're asking me not to tell the truth because your parents are strict. Are you kidding? You could have refused the marriage from the start if you didn't intend to marry. After 10 years of a selfish marriage, you're afraid of your parents finding out. I can't accept such a convenient story. But I can't accept your story. I'll make sure to tell both your parents and mine. And so I called both sets of parents. All 4 were shocked upon hearing my story. A meeting was promptly arranged at our house. I've heard everything over the phone. Is it true that you pretended to be married for 10 years without submitting a marriage registration? Speak up, you foolish son. It's true. I didn't submit it. Why would you do such a thing? Didn't you think about how Emily would feel? I had no choice. No choice, you say? How can you even say that? It's actually your fault, Dad and Mom. I didn't want to get married, yet you started looking for a bride on your own, saying it was time I got married. You arranged meetings and tried to force a marriage on me. You're the one who agreed to the marriage, aren't you? I had to agree. If I had refused, you would have made a fuss about it. So I decided to get married. If you were resolved to marry, why didn't you submit the marriage registration? I read about a man on the internet who was in the same situation. He didn't want to marry but had to because of his parents. He lived a married life without submitting the registration. then revealed the truth when he found someone he truly loved. That's appalling. And what happened to that guy in the end? He's now married to the person he loves and has a real marriage. So I too will marry my girlfriend and have a real marriage. Then my parents, who had been silent until now, spoke up. A real marriage, huh? Sure, you might not have had a love marriage, but do you remember what you said at the wedding? We will never forget to care for each other and build a home full of smiles. What did those words mean to you? What were we shown then? We sent our daughter to you hoping for her happiness, but you deceived her for 10 years without submitting a marriage registration. Did you build a home full of smiles? Now you're leaving her for another woman. Can someone who acts without a shred of care, even if they change partners, truly have a real marriage? Well, I was happy you married our daughter, not just because you were a doctor. I thought she could build a happy home with someone as sincere as you, but it seems we were mistaken and deceived. And you threatened our daughter. If she told us about this, you'd cut off the contract with our company. What? Seriously? If you're going to threaten our daughter, we'll cut off the contract ourselves. Be warned, we will tell the truth when asked why. If you do that, there'll be rumors at the hospital. Well, yes, but that's the result of your own actions. You were the one who threatened us with cutting off the contract. My husband was in complete panic at this unexpected turn of events. Please wait. This is getting out of hand. Let's just talk. At that moment, my father-in-law grabbed my husband by the collar. Furious, we didn't raise you to be such a scoundrel. What were you thinking? Father, please stop. By not submitting the marriage registration, you might have thought you were doing yourself a favor. But because of your selfish actions, Emily was strung along for 10 years. What were you thinking causing such trouble to others? The living room fell silent. My husband, faced with my father-in-law's words, had nothing more to say. Emily and your parents, I'm truly sorry for the trouble caused by this idiot. No, your parents shouldn't apologize. It's not your fault. However, it's partly our responsibility as parents for letting him act this way. For now, we'll take him home and make sure he doesn't continue his reckless behavior. We'll deal with the aftermath properly. We're very sorry for all this. And with that, my husband was taken away by his parents back to his childhood home. You've been through a lot. For now, you should come back home and rest. We'll think about what to do next later. You don't need to worry about anything right now. My parents thought I was completely exhausted and deceived. They spoke to me with such kindness. Thank you, but I won't go back home yet. I still have things I need to do. I declined their offer and stayed in my own home. What I had to do was prepare for the final settlement with my now ex-husband. Gathering evidence for our common law relationship, I was getting ready to claim alimony and divide our assets. A few weeks later, a meeting with a lawyer was arranged. However, even if I agreed to alimony, why should I divide my property? She's been a homemaker for 10 years, never working a day. All the furniture, clothes, food, I paid for everything. Now you're telling me to hand over the money I worked hard for, the furniture I bought. He rented, unable to accept that his money would be shared with me. Yes, that's correct. The money you earned and the furniture are subject to property division. Why does it have to be like that? Who did the housework while you were working? Who cooked meals with the groceries you bought? That's irrelevant now. No, it's very relevant. A homemaker is entitled to property division because housework and childcare have economic value. Speaking as a human, not just a lawyer, do you think housework is something anyone can do? That it's just expected of a homemaker. The reason you could live freely is because of her support. Don't get that wrong. And this situation is a result of your actions, yet you have the audacity to be selfish. What did you say? Never mind anyway. She's entitled to half of the assets for property division. That's how it is. Damn, regarding alimony, we intend to claim $100,000 from you. $100,000? Why so much for a relationship that wasn't even a marriage? It's precisely because you weren't married. Normally, alimony claims in common law relationships range from $10,000 to $40,000. However, in your case, you pretended to be married for 10 years and selfishly tried to kick her out when you found someone else. The amount is determined by the severity and duration of your actions. But still, you may think 10 years is just a short time, but it's longer than you realize. During that time, she devoted herself to you, believing you were a married couple. You have no right to complain after betraying her. A perfect rebuttal. He couldn't say anything and reluctantly agreed to my demands. Then I also sent a notice of claim for alimony to his mistress. I knew who and where she was thanks to the investigator. As he had said, she was a nurse working at the same hospital. The mistress, having heard from him that there was no possibility of alimony or property division, must have been utterly shocked by the contents of the claim. Wait a minute. This isn't what you told me. What do you want? I told you not to talk to me at the hospital. I got this from your wife. You said there wouldn't be any alimony because we weren't married. What's this all about? I later learned that in a panic after being served with the alimony claim from me, she confronted him at the hospital with the notice I had sent. Okay, let's talk about this later. Not here. There are too many people around. We'll both be in trouble if this turns into a rumor. I don't care about that. I can't pay this kind of alimony. You said it was okay, so you should pay. Pay it for me. What? I won't pay a penny. You were the one who wanted this relationship. You said I was the only one for you, that you wanted to marry me. Hey, quiet down. Everyone can hear us. Just so you know, I'm not in the wrong here. If you want to make amends with your wife, do it yourself. Tell her I don't owe her a penny, that you'll take care of everything. This exchange led to the revelation of their affair to the entire hospital. It quickly became the talk of the place. And then the final blow was my father's request to the hospital. I apologize, but we would like to terminate our contract at the end of next month. Then the hospital, aware of the rumors, asked my father, "Excuse me for asking, but is the reason for canceling the contract related to Dr. Michael's affair?" It's already become a rumor. Yes, a nurse presumed to be involved caused quite a scene. I never imagined he had been pretending to be married for 10 years without submitting a marriage registration. I never expected it to turn out like this. You mean he never submitted the registration? Weren't you aware that he hadn't submitted the marriage registration? All we knew was that he, being married, had an affair. What do you mean he didn't submit the marriage registration? With my father's request, it was revealed that he had been deceiving me for 10 years by not submitting the marriage registration. This news spread among the other nurses. Dr. Michael deceived his wife for 10 years without submitting a marriage registration, and he had an affair with a nurse. How low? How could he do that? Can someone really not notice for 10 years? Apparently, Emily's maiden name was the same, and he managed all the official paperwork. That's scary. The rumor spread not only among hospital staff, but also to patients. And both Michael and his mistress received cold stares. Unable to endure, they soon resigned from the hospital. As my father told me, "Did you manage to get the alimony?" Yes, I received payments from both him and his mistress. She refused to pay until the end, claiming she was deceived. But the lawyer made it clear her argument wouldn't hold, and she reluctantly agreed to pay. That's good. What about you, Dad? Did the contract get canceled after all? No, that's off the table. He resigned, and since our company is trusted, the hospital asked us not to cancel the contract. We couldn't cancel it after they asked like that. That's a relief. Then I started a new life in a new place and was living happily. About a year and a half later, my ex-husband contacted me. Is it true you got remarried? I had married a man I met at work, and somehow he had found out. I wondered whose number this was, going through the trouble of changing your number just to contact me. Just answer my question. Yes, I got married. You betrayed me. Betray? We were never legally married, so I didn't think it would matter to you. Right. That's a different matter, indeed. Things are different now. We're completely separated, so my marriage has nothing to do with you. Is that why you contacted me? After I said this, he seemed at a loss for words. Then he taunted, of course, you're still unmarried, since you probably haven't submitted a marriage registration. You're that kind of woman. But things weren't as he imagined. Unfortunately for you, my husband isn't the kind of person to do such terrible things. He knows all about your story. So to ensure I wouldn't feel anxious, we went to the office together to submit the registration. Sadly for you, things aren't as you thought. I can somewhat understand your wish for me to be unhappy, considering your own misery. But sorry, we're happily married. I told him this and hung up the phone. What kind of life he leads now, I don't know. But unless he changes his selfish nature, it's unlikely he'll ever find happiness.
At my company's anniversary party, I unexpectedly ran into my classmate, Sarah. But Sarah just mocked me for being a factory worker. Don't come near us if you see us, okay? My husband is a Harvard-educated director, way above someone lowly and incompetent like you, her words seemingly enjoying the harassment. It brought back painful memories of middle school. Back then, Sarah used to bully me for being poor. Finally, I felt as if the last straw of my patience had snapped inside me. Well, your husband will be unemployed from tomorrow, I said. Sarah was shocked by my unexpected words, but soon laughed it off as a joke. However, she and her husband would soon understand the true meaning of my words. My name is David Young. I'm turning 42 this year. I met my wife Annie at work, and we got married. It's our 15th wedding anniversary this year, and I've never really had a serious argument with a kind and family-oriented Annie. I'm always grateful to Annie, who always supports me, and we live a peaceful life together. One day, my company decided to hold an anniversary party. It's the 50th anniversary this year, so it was going to be a big event, and I was looking forward to it. On the day of the anniversary, I wore a suit and tie picked out by Annie and got ready to leave. Annie had her hair done beautifully in the morning and was wearing a light-coloured dress. How do I look, David? You look incredibly beautiful, I replied. Her elegant beauty was mesmerising. Perhaps partly due to my bias, with Annie by my side, I headed to the venue. The venue we rented was quite large, and as we got closer, we saw more people heading to the same place. It's typical for a big corporation's anniversary party to have so many invitees, I remarked. While exchanging words with Annie, we entered the venue and waited for the event to start. Inside, many people had already gathered, exchanging greetings and introducing themselves. Company events are, in a way, a chance for self-promotion, so the more capable employees are eager to network. While I was greeting attendees, I was suddenly approached. Is that you, David? It was Sarah, right there in front of me. Sarah, the beauty and centre of attention in our class since childhood, still maintained her beauty even after about 30 years since middle school. But now her beauty faded as she glared at me with her eyes narrowed. It's been a while, hasn't it, David? What are you doing now? Everyone's worried about you since you never show up to reunions. Sarah spoke to me with a mocking tone. To be frank, back in middle school, I wasn't exactly a standout in my class. Sarah, seemingly oblivious to this, kept talking with a his cheerful laugh. Even though I hadn't asked, I got married 5 years ago. My husband is an elite employee who was in charge of an overseas branch until recently, and today he's even getting recognised as an outstanding employee. That's great, congratulations, I said, surprised that Sarah's husband worked at this company. I still offered my congratulations. Then Sarah, for some reason displeased, frowned. There's no need for you to congratulate me. What kind of job do you have being here? Are you associated with the company? Before I could explain, Sarah waved her hand dismissively, as if bored with the conversation. Never mind, it's not important. You probably work in some subcontractor's factory, being a middle school graduate and all. I do go to the factory. I started to speak again, but by that time, Sarah had already turned her back on me. A factory worker like you should even be here. Just stay quiet in the corner and don't embarrass yourself. Sarah walked away towards a man that must be her husband, Brandon. While I thought it was petty, I made sure to remember his name. Sarah mocked me for being a middle school graduate, but to be precise, that's not entirely true. When I was in middle school, my mom got seriously ill, and my dad lost his job due to the recession. From that day, my life changed completely. My dad, once a diligent employee, started drinking and gambling to escape from the harsh reality. Soon, we ran out of money and had to sell our house, moving into a small, old one-bedroom apartment. As a middle schooler, I grew taller, but couldn't afford new uniforms or sportswear, so I had to make do with hand-me-downs from relatives. This made me a target for ridicule. My classmates called me poor and uncool. Sarah, beautiful and bossy, was the ringleader, even instructing the entire class not to talk to me. She was the popular girl in class, and no one dared to go against her, so her bullying continued until we graduated. On graduation day, Sarah called me over and asked with a sneer, "Which high school are you going to?" "It would be good if you could get a hand-me-down uniform." I was so annoyed by her persistent teasing that I retorted, "I won't need a uniform for the high school I'm going to." Not going to high school, just working after middle school. Yeah, that's right. I'm going to work after graduating middle school. Hearing my response, Sarah burst into laughter. Can't believe you don't even have the money to go to high school. Well, do your best to earn, you put. A middle school graduate. I left without replying to her. What I told Sarah wasn't entirely true, but it wasn't completely false either. I attended a night high school while working during the day. My dad was still drowning in alcohol, and my mom, who was doing piecework, kept going in and out of the hospital. So I had no one to rely on. After graduating middle school, I desperately looked for a job, but there were hardly any companies willing to hire a middle school graduate. The only place that hired me was the machine manufacturing factory where I work now. I've always loved tinkering with machines, so I threw myself into this job. I worked during the day and attended high school at night. Balancing work and study was tough, but I managed, thanks to the encouragement from my older colleagues. They taught me the ropes at work and even treated me to lunch sometimes, treating me like their own son. Years went by as I worked, supported by everyone. After finally graduating high school, I planned to continue working at the factory as an employee, but my senior colleagues advised me otherwise. Now that you've graduated high school, try to study as much as you can, they suggested. I went to college. I chose a university department related to my company's business and gained strength by acquiring various certifications and researching specialized fields. After graduating from college, I returned to the company. A few years later, at 25, I encountered a turning point at work. I met Annie, who'd become my wife. Annie was kind to everyone and had a lovely smile, and I gradually developed a fondness for her. But it turned out that she was also interested in me. She asked me out on a date, and that's how our relationship began. A few years later, we happily got married and built a warm family together. Throughout such a life full of ups and downs, I had completely forgotten about being harassed in middle school. So, when Sarah approached me at the venue today, I was genuinely surprised. Seeing my distressed look, Annie looked at me worriedly. After I briefly explained the situation, she tightly grasped my hand. "No matter what anyone says, I know you're a wonderful person, David. Let's stay confident and enjoy the company's anniversary party." "Yeah, you're right." Encouraged by her supportive words, I squeezed her hand back. Thus, we decided to wait for the party to start. After exchanging greetings with everyone, the hustle and bustle finally settled down. Thinking of resting until the start time, I moved towards the wall with Annie. "Oh, you're still here." There were Sarah and her husband, whom I had just parted ways with. I was a bit surprised to bump into them so unexpectedly, but I sincerely congratulated her husband, Brandon. "Brandon, I heard you're an outstanding employee getting an award today. Congratulations." But instead of responding, Brandon just looked me over as if appraising me. "Is this the factory worker classmate you were talking about, Jay? He has the audacity to attend the company's anniversary party despite being a mere worker." Sarah returned the words with a bitter expression. Then Brandon, ignoring my presence, curiously asked Sarah, "But for a factory worker, he's wearing a nice suit." I'm an elite, so I'm quite particular about suits. Even if he tries hard to wear a good suit, it's ruined because he's a lowly worker. It's truly embarrassing to have someone like him as a classmate. Frowning, Sarah spat out her words, and Brandon inquired further, "Embarrassing, Jay, imagine he's been a factory worker since dropping out of middle school. That's 30 years of being a mere worker." "Well, wow, really. That's unbelievable." Sarah pointed and laughed at me, and Brandon leaned back, distancing himself as if amused. They both looked down on me with obvious disdain and then glanced at the person next to me. There stood Annie, watching the two of them intently. "So, this bottom-of-the-barrel worker, even though he's a dropout, managed to get married. What does your wife do?" Sarah asked me, and I answered honestly, "She works in the same field as me. We met at work." At that moment, Sarah and Brandon looked at each other and burst out laughing. A couple both sweating it out in the field, doing menial work. Perfect match for an incompetent dropout like you. They started mocking not just me, but also my wife. I couldn't understand how they could say such awful things to my wife, a stranger to them. As I stood there stunned, Sarah blurted out, "But if I were you, I'd be too miserable to even mention working in a factory." "Yeah, for an elite like me, it's unimaginable to live such a lowly life. Please stop talking like that," I retorted angrily to their cruel insults. But Sarah looked at me as if I were something dirty and turned her back, and Brandon shooed me away as if swatting a fly. "If we keep talking to you, people might think I'm a local class worker like you. Could you go somewhere else, Jay? Talking to someone lowly like you might rub off on me." I was boiling with anger at such rude behaviour, but as a grown-up, I couldn't just let my emotions take over and start yelling. So I tried hard to hold it in. However, Sarah seemed to mock my feelings and hurled more disdainful words. "From now on, if you see us, don't come close, okay? My husband is a Harvard-educated director. Way different from a lowly, incompetent person like you." Her words enjoying the harassment brought back painful middle school memories. Back then and even now, Sarah acted arrogantly, thinking she wouldn't be retaliated against. I felt like I heard the sound of my patience snapping inside. "Well, your husband will be unemployed from tomorrow." Sarah was taken aback by my unexpected words, staring with wide eyes. As I stared back expressionlessly, she laughed it off, pretending, "Ah, my husband unemployed. What are you talking about? Have you lost your mind? Why would a mere factory worker like you have any power over my husband? That's because I'm the president of the company." For a moment, Sarah was dumbfounded, then suddenly burst into loud laughter. You, the president? Don't be silly. Are you just saying that because my husband is a Harvard-educated director and you want to one-up him? It's not a lie. Yeah, keep your fantasies to yourself, just like in middle school, I continued seriously, but Sarah clearly didn't believe a word. Then Brandon looked back and forth between me and Annie, standing by my side, and shrugged in disbelief. Married to a husband who spouts such fantasies, she must be quite the wife. Aren't you embarrassed to stand beside such a man? After spitting out those words, Brandon and Sarah hardly left together. As I watched their backs, I trembled with anger. The person who had harassed me so much in middle school was still treating me this way even now as an adult. And it wasn't just me they were mocking, it was Annie, my wife. I couldn't stay silent any longer. As I was about to step forward in anger to call them back, a gentle hand was placed on my shoulder. It was Annie. I heard everything, but it's not good to reprimand them here. But I couldn't just back down, especially after they laughed at Annie. But as I looked at her, I was taken aback by her unexpected expression. She wore a mischievous smile. I have a good idea hearing Anne's plan. I nodded deeply, feeling a sense of relief. When the announcement for the party start was made, we moved to our assigned seats. The event began on time, and the employees started singing the company anthem. In my peripheral vision, I saw Sarah and Brandon singing along as well. After checking with the organisers, it turned out that Brandon was indeed being recognised as an outstanding employee. Along with several other distinguished employees, he was escorted to a special seat with his family. Imagining what was about to happen, I suppressed a rising chuckle. After the anthem, the entertainment part started. There were performances by a magician and comedians, summarising the company's history in a skit, filling the room with a festive atmosphere. As the entertainment ended, the host led the applause and continued with the ceremony. Next, we'll have a speech from the president and CEO, Mr. Young, the host announced. Upon those words, I began to walk slowly. As I stood on the stage, I looked over the gathered crowd, expressing my gratitude while everyone listened intently. Only 2 people were the exception. Sarah and Brandon were staring at me, mouths agape in shock. Even from the stage, I could see their mouths moving. Why? Why is he speaking? It can't be true. He's the president. I haven't heard anything about this. Imagine that's what they were muttering. I continued speaking. Normally, we would now proceed to the ceremony for awarding outstanding employees. However, before that, I have an announcement to make. One of the awardees, the director who was assigned to our overseas branch, Brandon, will be dismissed from his position effective today. The room was enveloped in silence in an instant. As I tried to continue with a smile, the host approached me. What is your reasoning for this? The host asked me, appearing confused. It was then that Sarah suddenly stood up and shouted, "That's a lie, everyone. This man was just a classmate from my middle school. He's just a mere factory worker. Why is he standing there? Yeah, this must be some kind of prank. And this taste in entertainment is terrible, right, everyone?" With her shrill voice, Sarah spat out these words, and next to her, Brandon grinned smugly, looking back and forth between me and Sarah, bursting into a brazen laugh. The guests in the room started murmuring, enveloped in a tense atmosphere. I continued speaking calmly. Sarah just mentioned earlier that working in a factory is a lowly job. She also told me not to talk to her anymore, fearing that the lowness would rub off on her. So what? Sarah glared back at me, hands on her hips, still refusing to admit wrongdoing. I work for this company. I cannot continue working with someone who is ashamed of our work, I stated. But my husband is an elite director, completely different from you, Sarah retorted. But at that moment, the executive director, Ethan, rushed to the awardee's seat, his face flushed with anger, and started yelling at Brandon. "Hey, apologize to Mr. Young right now." However, Sarah and Brandon, still half smiling, refused to believe Ethan's words. "What's wrong, Ethan? Why should we apologize to some factory worker? He's just a lowly, incompetent worker. He's just trying to scare us by lying about firing my husband," Sarah said. But Ethan shouted back, his voice trembling, "State the name of our company." "Young High-Tech Corporation," Brandon muttered. Oh, muttering this, Brandon suddenly realized, and his face turned pale. His name, David Young. Could it be? He's really our company's president. At Brandon's words, Sarah froze in shock. During this time, I had been watching them, and judging that they finally understood, I spoke again. "It seems you finally believe me, Brandon." His face ashen, Brandon was shaking all over, hardly able to stand from his chair. "In fact," I continued, "Annie is the daughter of a major manufacturer that produces some of the leading semiconductor devices in the country. The company that accepted me, a middle school grad, was one of her parents' factories." At that time, it was still a mid-sized company taking on various machinery productions. But 30 years ago, it developed its first proprietary product, a microcryptometer, and has since expanded its business with the advancement of electronic device technology. Now, alongside semiconductor manufacturing, we're collaborating with foreign companies to develop even more precise testing systems. Combining the knowledge I gained in college with a practical perspective, I actively participated in product development after graduating, resulting in several hit products. Thanks to this, I was transferred to the headquarters, promoted to Director of Electronic Hardware Development, and that's where I met Annie. Even after our marriage, Annie's family never spoke of my past, attending a night high school instead. They warmly accepted me as a diligent and enthusiastic young man, rare in this era. Wanting to repay this family and the company that raised me, I devoted myself to my work without distraction. Then, 2 years ago, when Annie's father retired, I took over as the president. Understanding the truth, Brandon looked like he was about to collapse, and Ethan addressed him even more desperately. "You were overseas, so you might not have known directly, but at least check the information about the company you work for." That is, Brandon, his face still pale, tried to stammer an excuse, but Ethan, his face red with anger, kept yelling, "You're so caught up in being an elite from Harvard University that you don't even know the face of our president. I'm ashamed that I recommended someone like you as an outstanding employee." Ethan then grabbed Brandon by the scruff of his neck and dragged him in front of me. I deeply apologized for the disrespectful behavior of my subordinate. "Please forgive us. I'm so sorry for my ignorance," Ethan said, bowing his head forcefully. Brandon finally knelt down of his own accord, his face turning bright red as sweat dripped onto the floor. Annie, who had been watching this unfold, turned to me with a question. "David, what will you do now? You've revealed the truth in front of everyone." To avoid being accused of unilaterally firing an employee, yeah, well, he's fired. Someone who insults a person they've just met like that definitely doesn't fit in with our company, I said. Upon hearing my words, Ethan seemed to breathe a sigh of relief, thinking the situation was resolved. But the next voice came from Sarah, who had been dumbfoundedly watching everything. Her face flushed with anger, she lashed out at me. "I don't care if you're the president or whatever. Why do you get to act so high and mighty?" Furious and almost panting, Sarah was met with my calm response. "Before you criticized others, maybe you should worry about your own life. With your husband fired, you'll lose your income and won't be able to live luxuriously anymore," I said. Sarah, upon hearing my words, finally seemed to grasp her situation. Standing frozen, her lips quivering, Annie glanced at her and whispered, "To me, David, let's have those people leave now." "You're right. It's a special anniversary party after all. We need to make sure everyone who came enjoys it," I said. I instructed the staff to escort Brandon, who was still kneeling, and Sarah, pale-faced and rigid, out of the venue. After they left, we refreshed the atmosphere of the venue and successfully concluded the party. Brandon repeatedly tried to apologize, but I dismissed them. Having an employee who looks down on others just because of Sarah's words could eventually lead to issues at work. Brandon, who had been fired, suffered greatly since he had already purchased a luxurious home and car on loan, relying on his salary. Sarah, who always loved a lavish lifestyle and apparently never saved much, found their finances in dire straits within months. Unable to pay the enormous loans, the couple eventually had to sell their house and car and move to a shabby apartment. Brandon struggled to find a new job, losing both money and status, leading to endless quarrels in their now impoverished household. Eventually, they divorced and now live separately. Brandon, desperate for a job, finally found work as a factory worker. He spends his days standing in front of a conveyor belt, endlessly assembling machines as part of a repetitive process. Meanwhile, Sarah became a topic of discussion among her local classmates for her actions toward me. Abandoned even by her family, she now lives alone, struggling to afford meals. Her once prized beauty faded away. She's barely making ends meet by working night jobs. As for Annie and me, we continue to live happily. Our focus on developing excellent employees led to stable and growing company performance. Just as the company helped me, I now aim to fulfill the hopes of the younger generation. We've enhanced our educational programs and training systems for our employees, which has already led to the creation of an innovative new product. But it's not just a new product that was born. Annie and I also welcomed a beautiful daughter. Annie's family is overjoyed and adores her. "I'm so glad I met you. I'm truly happy," I said. "Me too," Annie replied. "When I graduated from middle school, I thought my life was over. But by never giving up on my potential and tirelessly searching for a path, I've been helped by many and now lead such a happy life. I want to continue delivering products that make the world a better place as a way to give back. With this resolve in my heart, I smiled at my precious family."
I'm a 28-year-old man named Tom. I don't get paid much because I work in a tiny factory. My monthly income is only around $1,500, which makes life difficult. I always felt sorry for my wife, Sarah, because of this. I got to know Sarah through a friend, and we began dating. Sarah and I were both 26 years old at the time, but she didn't appear to care about name brand products. Every woman I know had an obsession with branded items. Although it may sound odd, I was quite well liked by the women. In the end, I had casual relationships with women who were clean to me, but they always begged for branded products. They would start requesting items like Louboutin shoes or a Gucci purse on the second date. These things, which cost tens of thousands of dollars, were much out of my price range given my pay. Therefore, these women promptly left when I refused. Ultimately, I came to the realization that I was just an ATM to all of these ladies. Sarah, however, was unique. I felt Sarah had excellent taste, and she always wore simple but elegant clothing. I've come to love her more and more since we were married. She has been such a comfort to me because of her modest demeanor and never-ending grin. My wife never complains, even though my meager income causes some inconvenience. She works as a temporary employee and saves nearly all of her earnings. Why don't you purchase some makeup that you like, Sarah? There is nearly no more toner left on the bathroom counter. Well, but I was considering holding off till there was a sale. Next week marks the start of the Easy Peasy Super Sale. I believe it will continue until then. Really? I doubt that it will. Almost none remained. It's okay. I'll buy it for you. You constantly put off purchasing what you desire too much, Sarah. However, I don't actually dress up all that much. You know, buying things for myself feels wrong. Additionally, you haven't been purchasing much for yourself. To be honest, I'm okay. Are you certain? I constantly feel like I'm bothering you, therefore, I don't want you to hold back. That isn't true at all. I'm not reserving anything. All right, Sarah, if that's what you say. So long as you're content. Despite what she stated, I couldn't help but believe that Sarah was simply being thoughtful and wasn't purchasing anything because of me. I felt bad for bothering her because I didn't make much money. She may want to purchase as much of her favorite clothing and makeup as she desires. I am aware that all of her buddies are stylish. Although Sarah never expresses it, I can't help but wonder if she truly feels jealous. I made reservations at a posh steakhouse, thinking of it as an anniversary present since we had been married for a year. I'd assumed Sarah would be pleased because of the restaurant's stellar reputation. I was nervous about not following the proper etiquette because I had never eaten at such a fancy restaurant. Well, what counts is that we enjoy the food. I just want to enjoy the meal, so long as we don't dress badly or eat messy and bother other people. After that, Sarah and I visited the upscale steakhouse. The chef gave us a warm welcome when he spotted us. The restaurant's gorgeous decor made me quite anxious. I questioned whether it was truly okay for us to dine at such a lovely establishment. Sarah also appeared quite tense. She carried a gray handbag and wore a stylish black dress, although neither item was a luxury brand. They were purchased from a typical, reasonably priced clothes retailer. The dress and purse were still in excellent shape because Sarah took wonderful care of them and seemed to truly adore them. Unless you examined closely, no one would realize they were cheap. Sarah appeared relatively sophisticated due to her excellent sense of style. We placed an appetizer and steak order. We got soup and salad because I had read it's a good idea to start with something light. The salad was wonderful and fresh. This salad tastes great. It's the most delicious dressing I've ever experienced. Yes, I do agree. It has beets. Very tasty. This soup is also good. Yes, very tasty. Sarah's soup was corn pottage, and mine was potato pottage. Normally, canned chicken soup suffices for me, but this upscale soup was incredibly excellent. The soup was delicious and sweet without being overbearing, which is a characteristic of an excellent restaurant, I've heard. Afterward, we had the main meal, steak. It was really tender and juicy. The sauce was just right. It was my first time having steak so tender and rich in flavor. This steak is really delicious. It's so tender, it feels like it's melting in my mouth. Yes, it is. I really like it. It's the best steak I've ever had in my life. Jess, thank you for today. It was really delicious. While we were eating the steak, David, a manager from one of our client companies, showed up. I thought the last person I wanted to see and momentarily stopped using my fork. That's because David always looks down on me, and I don't like him either. David works for Company A large corporation that frequently advertises. He seems to earn a good salary working there. Moreover, David apparently graduated from a very prestigious national university and looked down on me for only graduating high school. I attended a technical high school because I wanted to acquire a trade skill and got many qualifications while I was there. But according to David, being a graduate of a technical high school is seen as being at the bottom of the hierarchy. I worked hard in my own way and had my reasons for choosing that high school, so I really can't like people like David who boast about their education and background and look down on others. No, I guess it's more accurate to say I quite dislike him. We had this conversation before today. Hey, I came to observe B Company. Really, it's a tiny business, isn't it? It's nothing like our company. What's with this shabby equipment? You guys must be short on money. Huh. Yeah, well, that's true. We are a small company, and replacing equipment isn't really feasible right now. You're Tom, right? Why are you working in a place like this? Couldn't get into a better company. I was recommended this company by my high school teacher. Even though it's small, our products have one of the highest market shares in the country, so I felt it was a good choice. So, you joined this company right after high school, No way. Wait a minute. High school graduate and already working. That's like being a loser in life. Oh, why do you think that? I don't believe that's true, because you didn't study hard enough to get into university. You're stuck as a high school graduate. So which high school did you go to? It must be a bottom tier one. Well, I went to C Technical High School. Huh, that's C Technical High School, the one where you get in just by writing your name. You really went to such a low-tier high school and not going to university. Your life is basically over. A high school that even a kindergartner could get into. It's embarrassing to even be alive. There's no need to say that. I worked hard too. Worked hard? That's something a college graduate can say, not you, a high school graduate from a technical school. You didn't work hard. That's why you're just a high school graduate. You don't get it. David said this and walked away. It felt like he just came to be a nuisance. He was really annoying. After such an incident, I really hated David. I mean, who could possibly like such a person? While we were eating steak, David was smirking. Then he sat next to us and suddenly started saying mean things. Tom, you frequent places like this as well. I thought you wouldn't have the chance. How many months of your salary did you spend here? Maybe 2 or 3 months worth. No. I just came here for our wedding anniversary. I haven't spent that many months worth of salary. I'd be surprised to see someone spend 2 or 3 months' salary at a steak restaurant. No matter how expensive, I doubt it would cost that much. Since he dislikes me, he can say such mean things and laugh about it. I looked down on him for being so rotten to the core. Yeah, well, it seems a bit out of your league, doesn't it? Also, your wife looks pretty poor. What's with that cheap outfit? Suddenly, he started belittling Sarah's clothes, and I got really angry. It's one thing to be sarcastic to me, but it's unforgivable to talk about her, who has nothing to do with this. Sarah looked sad and then looked down. I caught a glimpse of her face turning red as if she was embarrassed. That flimsy dress and obviously fake leather bag, so poverty-stricken. You can afford to buy anything better than that. Tom, you really are a loser. Hey, why would you say that? Don't talk about my wife. Even if you're a client's manager, I won't tolerate that. It's okay. Let it be. Stop, please. Sarah, I don't like you being insulted. Let's just go home. We've had enough delicious food. I'm fine with this. Che, poor people should go home. After all, your wife has been eating only bread, which comes with steak. Seems she liked it more than the steak. Poor people just eat bread at home. We were stunned. Sarah started to cry, saddened by the whole situation. I thought about dragging David outside and yelling at him. But then a lady at a distant table said something. Well, you wouldn't understand the good thing about bread. What's that? Sir, you don't seem to understand the quality of this bread. Hemph. I don't see anything good about this plain bread. It's just bread. Sir, you might want to stop there. Saying such things is not very appropriate. What are you talking about, chef? This is just regular bread, nothing special. Only poor people would appreciate this cheap stuff. I can't eat something so lowly. My taste is too refined. Well, you think that way. Fine. This bread is actually a super high-end product, you know. Really. The wheat we grow on our farm. Have you heard of Westfield Farm? Westfield Farm. The famous one that produces high-end vegetables and fruits. Yes, I'm the owner. My husband and I run it. We grow a variety of vegetables and rice, and the wheat for this bread is also from our farm. It's top-grade bread from the Westfield brand. I see. You said your taste is refined, but you didn't recognize the quality of this bread. We aimed for a sophisticated taste. Yes, this is exclusive high-end bread, only supplied to top restaurants. David had been belittling the bread, but it turns out the lady there was the one who produced it. Her name is Jennifer. Jennifer, along with her husband, manages Westfield Farm, a well-known establishment renowned for its vastness and its homemade condiments. Their condiments are quite pricey and popular among a certain circle of elite ladies. For someone like me, the prices were far beyond reach, and this bread was also a luxury item. Jennifer's bread, made with an original recipe, was unique and not available from other producers. It had a refined sweetness without being too sour, making it delicious. No wonder Sarah liked it so much. Although Sarah wasn't greedily eating only the bread, David, who may have never tasted this bread, was quick to assert that only poor people would be grateful for such a thing. But he must have been startled to find Jennifer, the creator, right there. David was sweating and seemed at a loss for words. Clearly, he fled. From my perspective, he looked quite embarrassed. I couldn't help but view him disdainfully as he awkwardly tried to find an excuse. "Ha ha, is that so? My apologies. Well, I haven't eaten much bread before. Sorry about that." "You don't tell me an apology. Perhaps you should apologize to these two." "Me apologize to him?" "Yes, you have been saying some terrible things. It was quite unbearable to listen to. You should properly apologize." "But I'm a manager at his client's company, and he's just a low-level employee. I don't want to apologize to someone who's just a high school graduate. I hate the bottom-tier people." "Oh, you hate the bottom tier. So you hate someone like me, who started from high school too? You look down on me." "Oh, well, that's not what I mean, no, it's different. I was just saying that about Tom." "It didn't sound like that, did it, Jennifer?" "No, it didn't. You appear to be looking down on all high school graduates. Just to let you know, my husband and I, who run Westfield Farm, are also high school graduates." No, that's not what Enough with the excuses. Can you please leave? You're ruining the enjoyment of our delicious foods. Right, chef? Yes, that's right. We put our hearts into making food for our customers to enjoy, but with someone like you here, it ruins the atmosphere. Please leave. Your presence is no longer welcome here." "All right, I understand. I'm sorry." David apologized to the chef, Jennifer, and us before leaving. Although it was an unpleasant encounter with a mean person, having support like theirs made me feel relieved. People like David, behaving arrogantly, would surely be unwelcome in high-class establishments. I figure he must have been condescending to the staff as well. Sarah was very grateful to the chef and Jennifer. "Thank you so much for defending us. I was nervous coming to such a nice place for the first time, and these clothes and bags are just affordable items I bought with the money I earned from my part-time job. I was worried they might be inappropriate." "Don't worry about that. You're well presented, and you haven't done anything wrong. Just be confident and proud of who you are." "Exactly. What does it matter if something is inexpensive? It suits you well and looks clean. People aren't better just because they own expensive things. My husband and I earn decently as a couple, but I've never desired expensive brand items. It's enough that something fits well and looks good. I guess feeling ashamed or sorry for myself is the real embarrassment. I'll try to be more confident." "That's right. Confidence is important. You did nothing wrong, so be proud and come visit us again. We were happy to see you enjoying our bread." "Thank you." It seemed that my wife was self-conscious about her attire looking inexpensive. The clothes and bags she wore were bought with her own earnings. But as a temp worker, her salary is modest. Seeing her friends, who are quite well off and own branded bags and shoes, she must have felt a bit envious. On the contrary, I felt even more guilty. If only my earnings were better, she could have had the option to be a stay-at-home wife and bought herself plenty of beautiful clothes and bags. Due to our financial struggles and my lack of income, she has to work. But Sarah never complained about working. She's kind, considerate, and truly more than I deserve. We then paid our bill and left the restaurant, grateful for the unexpected support and feeling a bit better about ourselves. When that man was being mean, I wasn't sure how to react, but it's reassuring to know we have allies. I felt very reassured. David always acts like that when he comes to our place, but I didn't want to see him either. Well, he got told off by the chef and Jennifer and screeched away. I'm really glad we could enjoy such delicious steak today. Thank you. It must have been expensive, right? Don't worry about it. I wanted to take you there. If it was delicious, then that's all that matters. Let's go again sometime. Let's do that. After that, I worked tirelessly at my job and gradually began to be recognized by my peers. I had always been at the bottom, but my boss finally acknowledged my hard work. I was thrilled that my efforts were being fairly evaluated. Sarah was overjoyed when she heard about my promotion. Congratulations on your promotion. I'm so glad your hard work paid off. Yeah, I'm glad there are people who recognize my efforts. If you work sincerely, it eventually pays off. That's true. I want to learn from you. I want to be your support. Sarah, you already are a great support to me. Thanks for everything. My pleasure. Oh, by the way, I've made a reservation for this Saturday. I wanted to celebrate your promotion. For my promotion. Where? At that steak restaurant. I wanted to go there again with you. Really? That's great. Then let's go this Saturday. Thank you so much. Sarah had reserved the same high-end steak restaurant for my promotion celebration. I was so moved, I almost cried. How lucky I was to have such a thoughtful wife. Then came Saturday, and we decided to dress up a bit and go to the restaurant. Although we're not rich, we chose affordable clothes that still looked nice. When we entered, the chef and Jennifer were there. I thought Jennifer was there to dine again today. I heard it's a celebration, so please accept this as a gift from us. This is wine. Yes, we got high-quality wine. It's exquisite, so please try it. This is too generous. Such an expensive item as a service. We couldn't possibly accept. It's our pleasure. Consider it a small token of our appreciation. Lucky us. Let's gratefully accept his kind offer. All right, let's enjoy it. Delicious, it tastes sweet. I wanted you to try this exceptional quality. Enjoy it. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to have such delicious wine. Tom, make sure you thank your wife. She's the one you should be grateful to. Sarah, thank you so much. Today, we're celebrating thanks to you. Let's enjoy our meal. Such a lovely couple. To support each other like this is wonderful. Here, take this from us as well. Jennifer handed us a set of high-end condiments. The dressings alone were worth around $15 each. I usually opt for dressings that cost about $1.80, so I wondered what these high-end dressings would taste like. There was also a large package of premium fruits, Westfield Farm strawberries, packaged in wooden boxes, sold for about $200. These were high-end fruits that someone like me would never normally afford. These are the legendary Westfield strawberries. Can we really accept such wonderful gifts? Yes, please do. Think of it as a thank you for appreciating our bread. The strawberries look so beautiful and big. I've never seen anything like it. Westfield Farm is truly remarkable with its extensive lands. I faced many challenges when I first got married. My husband and I worked tirelessly in the fields every day, but we supported each other and eventually built a large farm. So you too should continue to support each other as well. No matter what, stand by each other and move forward together. Yes, we will. Thank you so much. Jennifer seemed like a refined and graceful lady now, but she must have gone through a lot of struggles. She wasn't flaunting luxury brands, but was well made up, and her clothes were well cared for. Her shoes were polished too, showing she had a comfortable lifestyle. I aspired to be like her. No matter how tough things get, I want to be someone who supports my spouse and works hard for our dreams. With that in mind, I thought of collaborating with Sarah, enjoying our endeavors together. The steak that day was incredibly delicious. It was delicious the last time too, but maybe it tasted even better, wrapped in the happy atmosphere. Watching Sarah happily eating steak also warmed my heart. A year passed, and as a section chief, I was working hard and came home with a bouquet of flowers for our wedding anniversary. It was Sarah's favorite pink bouquet. I suggested going to the steak restaurant again, but Sarah seemed hesitant. I wondered if she didn't want to go there anymore. What's wrong? Didn't you like that place? We don't have to go if you don't want to. Well, I do want to go, but we can't. I went to the doctor today and found out I'm pregnant. You know, pregnant women shouldn't have wine. What? You're pregnant? That's incredible. Well, Sarah, it's our baby. Yes, our long-awaited baby. I'm so happy. I'll be a good mother. I'll do my utmost to be a great father. Let's keep working hard together. Yes, we'll help each other out no matter what. Then, Sarah decided to quit her job, and she gave birth to a boy. He was adorable, with big eyes like Sarah. Holding him, I felt like crying, overwhelmed by his preciousness. I was grateful every day for Sarah, who took care of our son. I did what I could, but as a stay-at-home mom, she did so much for us. As our son grew, Sarah began studying again. Sarah obtained her pharmacy technician certification and began working at a pharmacy. The nearby pharmacy offers flexible shifts, allowing her to finish work in time to pick up our son from his extracurricular activities. By that time, my earnings had increased significantly, and it would have been fine for Sarah to remain a full-time homemaker. But she had always been interested in pharmacy work and planned to study after childbirth. I was proud of my hard-working and ambitious wife. More than 20 years have passed since our son was born. I'm an old man now. Our son, Jason, graduated from university this spring and got a job. He's working for a major bank far from home and coming back for a holiday break. I believe our son Jason is very talented, as he secured a position at a major mega bank. I'm proud of him. Today, Sarah and I are being treated to steak by our son with his first salary. It's at that high-end steak restaurant. The chef, now in his mid-70s, was in his mid-50s when I first spoke to him. Hey there, is this your son? Yes, this is my son, Jason. Nice to meet you. I heard from my dad and mom that they really love this steak place. I thought I'd treat them. What a great son you have. You must be proud of him. Ha ha, he's excellent, unlike me. Oh, come on, Tom. You're great too. Aren't you a big shot now? Well, I'm just the vice president of a small company. That's still impressive. Now, please enjoy your meal. We started with the appetizing salad and ordered soup too. Every single piece was so delicious it felt like our cheeks might fall off. Jason, who was eating steak from this place for the first time, was also moved. Dad, this steak is really amazing. Well, I've never had steak this tender before. I could eat loads of it. It's so good. It makes me glad to be alive. Yeah, I love the steak too. I could eat it endlessly. Thanks for making the reservation today. Being treated by you is like a dream come true. You've really grown up well. I'm old enough, right? I've finally become a working adult, so I need to thank Mom and Dad. It wouldn't feel right otherwise. Ah, you've become so dependable. And this bread is absolutely delicious too. Where did they make it? Oh, that's from Westfield Farm Bread. You know, from that large farm. Oh, the large farm along the highway. I didn't know they grew wheat there. That's new to me. By the way, is Jennifer doing well? What is she up to these days? Actually, she passed away recently from cancer. I was quite shocked when I found out. What? She passed away. That's so sad. Jennifer was battling cancer. I had no idea. Well, Dad and Mom, you guys knew her. Well, sort of. She was a lady who was very kind to us. We didn't even get to say goodbye. It was a private funeral, and I only went to her grave. Jennifer was working hard at the farm till the end. Thinking about it every day, she really loved the farm. We'll never forget the vegetables and fruits filled with Jennifer's love. She was truly dedicated to running the farm. Now her son has taken over and is running the farm with his father. This bread is made using a secret recipe passed down, so it's exactly like Jennifer's taste. Ah, Jennifer's bread. Don't cry too much. Let's eat with a smile to help Jennifer's spirit rest in peace. Yeah, you're right. Thank you, Jennifer, for everything. Our son has grown up well, and we can eat steak together as a family. We hadn't known of Jennifer's passing. We had been so busy, hardly visiting the steak restaurant, so we never bumped into her. Jennifer had been battling terminal breast cancer, but even after hospitalization and discharge, she kept working hard at the farm. It made me realize how deeply she cherished the crops she grew. I deeply respected her dedication and love for the crops she grew, putting her life into her work. After praying for Jennifer's soul, we enjoyed the steak. My son paid the bill smoothly when it was time, and seeing him grown up like this reassured me. It's impressive to see him handling such a large amount so effortlessly. When I was a new graduate starting in a company, I was so poor, I hesitated to buy meals at convenience stores, a stark contrast. Since then, we've been going to the steak restaurant for every special occasion. The chef has grown old, so his son took over. Originally, his son was a company employee, but he trained to become a steak chef. I want to keep working hard so I can continue to enjoy delicious steak and show appreciation for all the hard times my wife has been through. I plan to take her there again for her next birthday.
Is it really okay for me to quit? I asked my boss, seeking confirmation. Rather, I want you to quit as soon as possible, especially now when the severance pay we owe you is minimal, my younger female boss responded, adding insult to injury. Her words led me to head home. After this, the company is going to face serious trouble. Little did my female boss know what was coming. My name is Thomas Richardson, 55 years old. After my divorce, I joined this company as a mid-career hire and have been working here for 30 years. I'm approaching retirement with less than 5 years left, but I'm still considered a sideline employee. I haven't seen my child in over 30 years. My ex-wife didn't want us to meet. There was a dispute at the time, but now I've come to terms with it. As a parent, I only wanted to fulfill my duty of paying child support, which ended when my child became an adult. I don't have any plans to spend money on anything special now. I've never had a desire for promotion, so I'm grateful for my current work environment where I can take things easy. My hobbies are fishing and golf. I often go alone on my days off, but I've made friends and had various conversations with people I meet there. One of these friends owns a boat and sometimes takes me out to sea, and another, a farmer, shares homegrown vegetables with me. I don't have a family, but I don't feel lonely thanks to these expanding social connections. I really enjoy living my days at my own pace. One day, I arrived at the office to find everyone in a frenzy. What's going on? I asked Mark, a junior colleague sitting next to me. It turns out there's a sudden inspection from the headquarters, he replied. Ah, that's why everyone's suddenly cleaning up. They should just show it as it is, I said with a laugh and sat down to start my work. We've had such inspections before, but they never really posed a problem. The employees hurrying to tidy up were the ones who didn't keep their desks organized regularly. If they had just done the bare minimum of tidying every day, they wouldn't be panicking like this now. I'd only understood the importance of daily tidying at my age, so I can't say much. A few hours later, the inspectors from the headquarters arrived. The person in charge of our department was a young woman. However, it seems she holds the position of a manager. Watching her greet us, I assume she must be quite capable. Hello, I'm Jessica from the headquarters. Today, I'm here to observe your work. Please continue with your usual tasks, she said. We nodded in response to her greeting and began our usual work. She's beautiful. Some of the younger male employees seemed a bit excited by her presence, which made me chuckle at their youthfulness. What does this mean? Jessica was asking questions and smiling as she inspected each employee's work. Then she came to me. What is that part-timer doing right now? Her question was directed at me. Ah, I'm a full-time employee, I said with a forced smile. Oh, I'm sorry. Are you a supervisor? Jessica apologized. No, I'm just a regular employee without a title. Well, about my current work. I was about to explain when her tone changed abruptly. What? Jessica's voice took on a sharp edge. I looked up at her voice. A regular employee at your age? Her words were cutting. She seemed angry, and I felt intimidated. Yes. I've never been much interested in climbing the corporate ladder. I stumbled over my words, and she burst out laughing. Isn't it simply because you can't do the job? Incompetent and old. You're fired as of today. Don't bother coming in tomorrow, she said harshly. Not just me, but the surrounding employees were stunned by her words. We can't afford to pay incompetent people. This is necessary for the company's cost-cutting. There are plenty of others who can replace you, she continued. Realizing I was being insulted, I clenched my fist in anger. Sure, she might be competent, but that doesn't give her the right to belittle others. Annoyed, I stood up and said to her, Is it really okay for me to quit? I asked Jessica for confirmation. Rather, I'd prefer you quit now while we can still save on the S-Pay. She insulted me further with a satisfied smile. I no longer felt like working. I had been told to leave. It wouldn't be marked as an absence. I picked up my bag and left the company. As I left the department, everyone tried to stop me, but nobody dared speak in front of Jessica. My direct boss, Samuel, had more authority than Jessica, but there's a tradition in our company of not opposing headquarters staff. Samuel said nothing, and I walked home alone. The next day was Saturday, and the company was already closed. Wondering what to do from Monday, I decided not to waste a holiday worrying and went fishing instead. I think things through well while doing something I enjoy. Fishing is the perfect hobby for that. I went fishing early in the morning. It was my usual favorite fishing spot. Despite my mood, the sea was calm, promising a good night with good fish. With that thought, I cast my line. Hey, I thought you might be here, someone called out to me. Max. It was my fishing buddy, Max Stewart. We met here. He's 10 years older than me, but a dear friend who looks after me and listens to my stories. Any luck today? This is good, so I hoped for a big catch, but it's not going as expected, I said, opening my box. Only one fish so far. Max laughed at that. Well, no rush, he said, setting up his gear a little away from me. Clouds drifted slowly by. Even though the fishing scenery was the same as always, my mood was notably heavier, probably due to what happened yesterday. What's wrong? You look down today, Max said. I laughed at his words. Max, I have something I need to apologize to you for. What do you mean? Then I began to speak slowly. Actually, there was an inspection from the headquarters last Friday. I met a manager there for the first time, and it seems she took a dislike to me, I said, laughing to hide my embarrassment. I was told not to come back. I got angry and left. I might end up getting fired. I've shared so much with you, and you've encouraged me. I'm sorry. No need to apologize to me, Max said, then silently stared at his float in the sea, occasionally sighing deeply as if pondering something. I'd rather live a relaxed life than get busy with promotions, but it seems that hard-working youngsters don't like that. Relationships are harder than work, aren't they? I said earnestly. Max replied, Well, I can understand the supervisor's feelings, but it's wrong to unjustly fire someone. A supervisor should understand their subordinates' feelings and situations. That's why she lags. People who climb the ladder just based on their brains or performance often misunderstand things. I admired Max's wisdom. He got in for me and cared about my situation. Talking to him made me feel much better. Just talking to someone can make such a difference. I thanked Max and shifted my mood. After that, I caught more fish than ever. Perhaps the fish didn't want to come near me with my dark aura. While thinking this, I returned home with a heavy cooler box. 2 days later, on Monday, despite it being a work day, I stayed at home. I had been pushed out in such a manner. I wasn't sure whether to go back. Max, whom I met on Saturday, gave me advice. The company is all about people. You don't need to apologize to them. Wait until they come to you. You've been working hard and must have a lot of paid leave, right? Indeed, I never used my paid leave, so I must have a few days' worth. Maybe it's a good time for a trip. While thinking this, enjoying a leisurely morning coffee on a weekday felt novel. As I was about to have a late breakfast, my phone rang. It was the ringtone of a phone call. When I looked at the screen, it displayed the name of the company I work for along with the name of my department. What could it be? I had informed Samuel about using my leave. Hello. As soon as I answered, I heard Samuel's frantic voice. Thomas, come to the office right away. Why? I told you I'm using my leave, I replied. But Samuel insisted. Please just come. We're in big trouble. Our biggest client says they'll cancel all contracts if you're fired. Please come and help continue the contract. I laughed cynically. Why should I go and beg? You saw the exchange the other day, right? Jessica told me I'm fired, to go home. If she doesn't admit her fault and apologize by the time my leave is used up, then I'll have nothing to do with the company anymore. So I don't care about future contracts, I said, sipping my coffee. Don't say that. I know how hard you've worked. That should be enough. It's nice of you to say so, but whether Jessica is a headquarters supervisor and I'm a low-level employee, it doesn't give her the right to be rude. You understand that, right, Samuel? Please consider the future in the company, I said and hung up the phone. I had somewhat anticipated this development, but for Jessica, it must have been like a bolt from the blue. I might have caused trouble for everyone at the branch. However, Max's words, "Don't apologize to the company," stuck with me. Then, in the evening of that day, I received a call from the headquarters on my cell phone. It was probably her. Expecting to be insulted again, I cleared my throat and answered the call. Hello. Hello, this is Jessica from the headquarters. Is this Thomas's phone? Yes, it is. What do you want? I replied coldly. She spoke with a low voice. I'm truly sorry for the disrespectful things I said the other day. I would like to apologize personally, which is why I'm calling you. Her voice lacked the confidence and assertiveness from before. Perhaps her behavior during the inspection had been reported to the headquarters, and she had been reprimanded by her superiors. Understood. I thought it wouldn't hurt to at least hear her out. She suggested meeting at a restaurant our company frequently uses for clients and wanted to meet that evening. I was on leave and agreed to meet her that night. I'd arrived at the restaurant first. I never thought we'd be having a meal together, but probably she was instructed to apologize to me to salvage the major contract. I could sense the desperation of the company. I'm sorry for being late, Jessica said as she entered the room. We sat down across from each other. I'm sorry for calling you out like this today. She seemed on the verge of tears. Feeling a bit sorry for her, I smiled and said, Your feelings have already come across, Jessica. I came here today to forgive you, but your view is too biased. I'm not in a position to preach, but I wanted to have a talk. Encouraged by my words, she started to speak. Actually, I was raised in a single-parent family by a strict mother. She believed that since we were already at a disadvantage, I had to beat others regardless of gender in academics and attitude. She insisted that I should study hard, join a reputable company, and climb the corporate ladder. I also believed that approach was necessary to survive in society. She spoke without touching her food. I replied, That's true. It's not wrong, and is actually a wonderful approach. Thank you, she said, and I smiled at her. Jessica, slightly reassured, continued. So I thought I'm working this hard and maybe unknowingly pushed that onto others. And I got targeted because even at my age, I hadn't climbed the ranks. I laughed, understanding her point, and she shrank a bit with guilt. I had no intention of blaming her anymore. She must have been trying her best in her own way. Then, seeing her still hesitant, I encouraged her to eat. She was probably hungry after a long day. We both picked up our chopsticks together. I aimed that it had been a while since I had a meal with someone. But while I was feeling relaxed, she still seemed a bit down. Well, a company doesn't rely just on its superiors. You're still young. It's good that you realize this now, I smiled, trying to encourage her. Finally, Jessica seemed to truly relax. Thank you, she said to me, and then started eating. Her mother must have been desperate to raise her well. She seemed like a well-disciplined lady. After that, we engaged in casual conversation. I, who had not attended university, listened to her stories about her college days and about the situation at the headquarters. The ice was broken, and we enjoyed our meal together. During our conversation, she asked me a question. By the way, why did Mr. Stewart, the president of our main contractor, say you would cancel the contract if you weren't there? I laughed. Max and I are fishing buddies. We met by chance and became good friends. I talked earnestly about work, and that's why they contracted with us. Of course, it's not just because we're friends. He was convinced by my proposal. She was surprised. To think you secured such a major contract, she said, then fell silent. I understood what she wanted to say. She was probably wondering why I hadn't climbed the corporate ladder despite securing such a major contract. I really had no desire for promotion, I said with a smile, and she smiled back. Well, there are others in charge of Max's company, but he often contacts me directly. He knew I was sincere, so he trusted me as a business partner, and we've had a good relationship. That's how it was. You've been supporting the company as a hidden pillar, she said. Don't worry about it anymore, I replied. She wasn't a bad person. Being in a managerial position at her age at our company meant she must have worked very hard. Jessica seemed to be reflecting on her actions, feeling ashamed for only seeing the surface and results. If you've reflected, just keep working hard from now on. I'm already 55, close to retirement, and don't have a family, so I don't plan to pursue promotions. But I think your approach is not wrong. Good luck, I encouraged her again. Then Jessica looked up. No family, right? I don't have anything to protect, so I plan to live a carefree life from now on. I smiled gently in response to her smile. Hearing about my way of living, she probably thought to herself that such a life is also possible. I decided to work hard so that she and the younger employees could thrive in the company even after my retirement. I returned to work, cutting my leave short. My colleagues in the department were relieved to see me back. When they started to speak ill of Jessica, I said, I've made peace with her. I've heard her reasons. She's a colleague in the company. Let's stop attacking her. I was thankful they stood up for me, but bad-mouthing only breeds more negativity. Everyone agreed with my words, and so I was able to return to my original environment and gratefully resume my work. A few months later, while enjoying my usual routine at work and fishing with Max and other friends on my days off, I heard a rumor amidst these peaceful days. Jessica is said to have faked her performance for promotion and is going to face a disciplinary meeting. I was surprised. Facing a disciplinary meeting could mean demotion, a pay cut, or in the worst case, a disciplinary action. I couldn't believe Jessica would do such things. We really talked a lot that day. Her face, as she spoke about her efforts and the challenges she faced in her work, showed no signs of deceit. Of course, if she truly did wrong, she should be punished and reflect. But if it was a false accusation, it would be too unfair. If there was even a slight chance of a wrongful accusation, I wanted to help clear her name. After what happened, I couldn't see her as a stranger anymore. Of course, anything I could investigate, the HR department had already looked into. But still, I reviewed the documents she created and the records of transactions. I heard about it. Among them were documents from companies where my golf friends are managers or executives. I reached out and spoke to various people, confirming there was no wrongdoing in her dealings. Furthermore, everyone unanimously said Jessica really worked hard for us. Then I advised this to HR. The HR manager, Tyler, is my contemporary, though he's younger than me since I was hired mid-career. We've known each other for a long time. If Thomas says so, it must be right. He believed my words. Later, I found out that the source of the rumor was the work of her older subordinates who were jealous of Jessica. I was dismayed to realize that there were petty people everywhere. Those individuals apparently faced disciplinary action. A few days later, Jessica came back to our department. Thomas, can I talk to you for a moment? She asked nervously. I followed her into a separate room. She said, thank you for the other day. I heard from Tyler that you helped clear my name. I really appreciate it. Then she expressed her gratitude. I responded, it's nothing. I couldn't believe that you would do such a thing. It was just a little talk since Tyler happened to be my contemporary. I said this with a laugh, even though my heart was racing. But I had something I needed to say. Can I tell you something? I asked Jessica. She tilted her head curiously. Actually, I went through various documents you prepared. That's when I first learned your family name. I looked down. In fact, I was too nervous to look up. Hey, oh, my family name, it's Harford, Jessica said. I gathered my courage and spoke my words. Jessica cried out like a child and clung tightly to me. I hesitantly wrapped my arms around her. The last time I held her was when she was 2. Realizing how much she had grown, I was moved again by her struggles. Is your mother well? I asked, and she nodded happily. I was grateful to my ex-wife for raising her so well. I never imagined reuniting like this. I thought I had no family left, yet she was so close all along. My encounters and earnest efforts had finally paid off for my daughter. I realized the importance of trust in relationships. Hard work eventually pays off, becoming a tool to help oneself and loved ones in unexpected ways. And then, there's me with no desire for promotion and my daughter with her high aspirations. Though our thoughts differ, our sincerity in wanting the best for the company is undeniable. That's why we should continue living honestly according to our beliefs. I want to live a relaxed life but will work diligently until retirement to leave some savings for my daughter. I'll respect her wishes and fully support her desire to succeed. That way, we both will surely find happiness.